Hi, I'm Gary,
Hello, I'm Leon, the grandfather.
and we are Gary and
The grandfather.
yeah. Good evening to all of our faithful listeners. How are you guys tonight? How are you tonight?
I'm really good. I want to talk about change.
Change.
I like change. I like to change.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, let's change. That's a good idea. Let's
Yeah.
change. Change my hat around.
There we are.
Change. There we are.
Change.
Change.
But seriously, you think people like to change?
I think it depends on the person and personality for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've seen met some people who are stuck in their ways, where they just really, I've even known people who have had the same haircut for 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
What are you thinking about yourself when I said that?
No heavens. When I grew up, we had extremely long hair.
Mm-hmm.
Long hair, and I had an earring.
Oh, and then you
Yeah.
realized how silly you looked, and then you changed.
At the time you didn't think you looked silly. At the time you thought you were exceptionally cool, and you had all that positive reinforcement from the ladies. The ladies really thought you looked cool.
And then you realize later, man.
It's funny about that kind of change. When it's subtle change, it takes time, and so you don't really notice. It's kind of a little bit like your body. Like people often used to say, when I was young, that when you get old, you won't really notice any changes at all, and it's true. Like I'm basically, I think I'm almost the same today as I was 30 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we all know biologically that's a total lie, right? But I think in a certain sense of the word, because of memories, of course, I'm still linked from the time I was 30 till now, 65. The time I was 15 till 65, I'm linked through these memories, right? And I guess if you really stand back and you look at the the pictures and the photographs, like I have a lot of pictures around here, of course, and you kind of document changes, but I think that kind of change is understandable. I think it would be a terrible thing if you had conflict, war, something like this, and you had total destruction, and you were then forced to change. Or like my grandparents, they came to Canada from, my grandfather came from Austria-Hungary, and my grandmother came from Poland, and the reason they came is they couldn't buy any farmland. It was impossible, but in Canada, they were offering land for $10, which probably is $100,000 today. But it was still cheaper than to try and buy it in Poland, And now, of course, the land is either part of the Ukraine or it's part of Russia, so it's so changed. Speaking to someone today about this, about how if you owned a home, depending on where you owned a home, you had one of two problems, or maybe three problems. One, maybe your home was destroyed. B, maybe it was occupied by another power. Or C, maybe, somebody actually was living in your home that wasn't you, right? You lost everything.
Yeah.
Right? So, what do you think about change? Gary, what do you think?
It really depends. I think it really depends on what kind of change. I think as we progress through life, we need to change.
That,
I know I've told you about this before, the situation of like bands, for example,
yeah,
greats.
yeah,
Somebody like AC/DC or Rolling Stones or whoever, and you look at and when bands let me go back, when bands reunite after they've broken up for a farewell tour or something, and they're all a bunch of old, haggard looking
men.
and I think you should have quit years ago.
Yeah.
Because what you're singing about now, the themes and topics you're singing about really don't make sense compared to
The modern age.
well, compared to how you look. That you're singing about women and cocaine and cars and whatever. And
I remember in '62, I used to have so much fun with you.
that I just think that something like that,
Yeah.
for sure. I think there's an appreciation if it's a really popular, iconic band, for sure. I think um, similarly, you should never give up a hobby or something you enjoy doing, and I think those guys, they probably do enjoy playing and performing and the whole thing.
Sure.
But at the same time,
Yeah.
I think you gotta have some respect for yourself, and
Yeah.
that's yeah.
You see, Fury is going to the boxer. He's going to retire.
Is it?
Yeah, he's going to the world heavyweight champion. He's going to quit. He's 6'9". He's only had 2 losses in his whole career. He's a huge man, right? And I watched him interviewed today. He said, "Look, I've won all the fights. I've won all the belts. I've got more money than I can ever spend in a lifetime, right? I'm happily married. I got 5 children. I don't have to prove anything to anyone, you know." And I thought, isn't that interesting? An interesting statement, right?
Well, I think that's the way. You should go out. There's a band I like from Australia. They never became popular in the States for some reason. It was a band called Powderfinger, and
Good.
great, excellent music. It's excellent,
Mm.
and they wrote album after album. I have them all. They're all excellent albums. And then a few years back, the band broke up. They quit, and somebody said, "Why?" And I guess the lead guy, he said, "Well, we ran out of stuff to write songs about.
Wow.
We
Wow.
wrote everything that we wanted. We
Nice.
said what we felt like we needed to say. By now, they're all stinking rich as well.
Yeah.
And their ages, I'm not sure, but they have been playing for a long time.
Powderfinger.
Powderfinger,
Okay,
yeah.
I looked them up. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. But, yeah, they decided it was time to get out respectfully with grace. And so they did.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, Gary, what I remark on, and what we often speak about, is such that old men, like me, you have one of 2 choices,
Mm-hmm.
right? You either decide that you're going to live life proactively, or you should die. That's my take on it, right?
Mhm.
You either should get up and realize, look, I've lived a full life, I've made some money, I've done certain things, I've had some adventures. Now, what can I give back to the world? What can I do for the world in the next 20, 30, 40 years that I have? Play
Yeah.
golf? Please. Is that your legacy? Well, he played golf really well. He could really drive that ball. Right? And I think that's what you're talking about. Learn to change. Because we have that model, that template, don't we? I go to school, I get a job, I meet Mrs. Wright, I have a couple of children, I save some money, I retire, I die. But that's not life. It's not life at all.
I think, getting back with this change thing,
Hmm.
I think there needs to be a balance in change. I think there really needs to be a balance between different parts. A lot of people don't like change, and I don't like change either. For some things, a lot of people you talk to, and they say, "Well, the music today, I don't like the." You were even saying it yourself, "I don't like the music today," or "I don't like the."
Different guy.
I
Wasn't
don't
me.
like the video games today, or I don't like the. Look what smartphones did to the world. Or in my day, we used to write postcards and letters. Now you just send emails. And I think for some of it, there is indeed. I think some of it has merit.
Hmm.
We have lost a bit,
Probably gained other things,
but
right?
we've gained other things. And I think at the end of the day, we need to adapt as humans the best we can. That if we don't accept change, we're going to just be living in the past, or we're going to be fighting the present and the future.
Mm.
And I think fighting the present and the future is not going to lead you to happiness. It's not going to lead you anywhere but to frustration. Living in the past, again, you just gotta watch as life passes you by. I mean, take nostalgia, for example. It's a painful feeling. It's a good feeling, but the actual definition implies a bit of pain because of the fact that it is this longing for something, this days gone by, this feeling, this simpler times, these things, you know, which have been washed away by the change. The job, your family, the marriage, whatever. Yeah, you have more responsibilities. Maybe you've lost a partner. Maybe you've gotten older and you're not as physically fit. And the list goes on and on and on of the change, you know.
Yeah, but I think to a large extent, I have a friend. Well, we're no longer friends, but we were friends.
Well, there's change right there.
There's change there.
There's big change.
But he refused to get a phone. Refused. Mm-hmm. And yet he kept saying to me, "I'm so lonely." And I said, "Well, of course you're lonely. You know that everyone's on the phone now. You know, everything's associated with the phone. If you don't have a phone, you're isolated.
Yeah.
It's just like you don't have your underwear on, for God's sakes. And really, you know, I mean, could you imagine not having a phone? You know, I mean, you'd have to be really out in the twilight zone.
Well, these days you'd have to, and that's what, as I said, I think with change you have to
embrace some changes, for sure.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
That you don't have to like it, but you have to embrace some changes. And it's easier to learn to adapt to some things than it is to just fight everything tooth and nail.
For sure. Aging is one, Gary, you know? Like, you better like your aging process. Somebody asked me, the principal today at one of the high schools, she said to me, you know, what's it like to get old? I said, I don't know. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, find somebody who's old, you know? And then she realized that I was kidding, of course. But I wasn't totally kidding. Because you can't be old and teach kids that are 17, 18, 19 years old. 18 years old, not 19, 18 years old. You can't. You've got to somehow have a link with them. You can't be in the twilight zone, right? You know, so I think teaching and giving back to the world is the best way to keep youthful in your mind and positive in your heart. Really, I do. Because you're constantly challenged, right? Like today we were discussing a concept which is from Anthony DeMello, which is you are not your thoughts. Interesting idea. You are not your thoughts, right? That's what he always promotes. So in other words, your thoughts are associated with the world or perhaps your background or your, you know, but you as a person, as a perfect being, God's child, if you will, right? You're always positive inside of you, right? But your thoughts can be profoundly negative, right? But you are not your thoughts. I think I mentioned before, he says, he got an interesting thing in the morning. He said, when you're having a bad day in the morning, when you wake up, don't say, I am having a bad day. Say, it is having a bad day. So you objectify your thoughts. You move them away from the subject, from you, to another object away from you. And he was very successful. You know, and he's a Jesuit priest from India, right? And I think that's an interesting idea, you know, so that you can be a positive force for change in the world. Just because the body ages doesn't mean the mind ages. It shouldn't. If anything, it should become more youthful, you know. And there's many studies about the elasticity of the brain now. You know, like when I was young, it was just an automatic assumption. 65, dead. If not dead, brain dead. Basically, alcohol, drugs, whatever. Not the drugs, but alcohol. And you anesthetized yourself to a point that it didn't really matter. Whether you went out at 65, 75, 85, you were blasted the whole, on the final way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's the wrong way to think, because you want to be awake and lucid and excited about the morning. I mean, you don't want to be anesthetized at all. Why would you? At all. Why? You want to be real, I think. So that's at least a change for me in my life, which is the perception of change, right?
I think one of the reason people don't like change, a lot of people, is because of fear.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's what it is. It's fear. I think when we are younger, we are more elastic as a whole.
Could be.
And we are more, it's the same reason where it doesn't matter who it is that you take, but if you take somebody who is older, generally they are, if they haven't had exposure previously,
Yeah.
they are not going to be too keen on
Change.
trying new
Let's-
food.
let's-
Food.
Okay, let's move to Calcutta tomorrow morning.
That if they're younger, but if they're younger, they're more likely to
Try it.
try it.
Yeah.
So, for example, my parents,
Mm.
they are not very keen on Asian food.
Okay.
They didn't grow up eating it. They're not keen on it.
And they came here, right? They visited.
And they've visited, they've come to places in Asia, and even, local Americanized Asian food is still not for them because they never grew up eating it.
Yeah.
Whereas my brother and I, to eat Asian food or
Normal.
it's fine. Even to try other foods from other countries that we didn't grow up eating, I think it's fine because we've had more exposure from a younger age. So that's a classic example. But I think a lot of it is just fear. That people when they're young, people are fearless. They get older, they've had some bad experiences that shape their outlook. And then from that point onwards, they start to get set into their comfort zone.
For sure.
I don't want to say their ways, but their comfort zone.
Yeah.
And then at that point, they always see change as something that will threaten what they're used to, threaten their comfort zone, maybe take away something they like and replace it with something they don't like. Maybe computers, for example, technology. My mother was a school teacher, right? And every year until she retired, she always dreaded what sort of technology they were going to bring in, because it would just be something new that you'd have to learn. And
She didn't like it.
oh, of course not. Because maybe you'd go to an in-service or a workshop or something. Somebody would teach you the bare minimum of what you had to do. But unless you're really interested in
Yeah.
the technology, you're probably not going to feel comfortable doing what you have to do.
Yeah.
And then the minute something goes wrong,
Yeah.
then there's even bigger problems. I used to work, in the school,
Yeah.
helping to do the the tech service for the teachers. And so we go around, and sometimes you go into a classroom, teacher can't even get their computer turned on.
Yeah.
It's because it's unplugged.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's because these are people who,
Didn't know.
they were in their 50s or whatever,
Yeah.
and they just, this was back in 2002,
Wow.
2004,
Yeah.
in their 50s. So when they were in school, they weren't using computers, and if they did, it was totally different than these ones.
I had this business, and we computerized, and I got
Yeah.
a computer on my desk, and I kind of looked at it. So and everyone is using the computer except the boss. So I gotta learn. So so I go there and I worked away typing a document. Right, spent 3 hours, and I turned off the computer and I was there very late. Turned it off, went home, came back the next day, turned on the computer. It's gone. It's gone. You know, like yeah. And I was just horrified. Save. Learned what I learned. Well, now it's automatic, of course. But you know, but can I tell you funny about change?
You're not gonna top that one.
Yeah. No, I got one, but more on the personal and intimate side. I lived in Poland to learn Polish. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I hate liver. Okay.
Yeah.
So and I took this young lady out to lunch of all places. We're sitting in this wonderful restaurant by this river, and oh my God, here comes the menu, and I'm so profoundly clever. I'm so good looking and everything, right? And I order, and they brought this little pieces of chicken. Oh, that's kind of charming. I know what I'm doing. And I'm eating away, and the girl said to me, "Do you like liver?" And I said, "Liver? No, I don't like liver at all." She said, "Well, then why are you eating liver?" And I thought, oh, well, today I felt so good, I decided to eat liver. So embarrassed, eh? And then after, it wasn't so bad in the end, but it was just like your idea. I would never have tried Polish liver, because it was slightly different in the taste.
What was it? Well, how did they have it prepared?
It was smaller pieces.
So it was pieces.
Smaller pieces, and it was breaded as well, so it was big. It was better.
Okay, so it wasn't like the paste or anything.
No, it was good.
Oh, because that's really. I remember when I went to Denmark.
Yeah.
It's the first time I had the liver. There was a paste, and they served it with the bread. Like, I think they call it lever pastille or something.
Okay.
It
liver
was
paste.
so good.
Yeah.
That I thought it seemed like the grossest thing ever, but
yeah,
I was there with some
bread and butter,
lady friends, and then
yeah.
A couple other Danish guys, and it was so good. I think we was out on a boat.
Did you know what it was?
Yeah, they told me what it was.
Oh, wow. Liver paste. Wow.
Well, that was the thing. They should never tell you.
Yeah.
Until after you've eaten.
That's right. Except for frog. I ate frog once. They told me after, and for the next hour I could feel the frog jumping.
Well, was it the whole frog or just the legs?
No, it was I think frog was ground up in some type of.
Oh, well, that would be fun.
Whoa.
Well, do you know in Taiwan, right?
Yeah.
There's a town down south. It's called Bacon.
Yeah.
And
they specialize dog. They eat dog.
No, not dog, but they have the soup with frog.
Oh.
With a frog.
No, and they snake probably.
No, this is just a frog, special frog soup. And what they do, so you get a bowl, has like the Taiwan style soup, just broth, water, and then they'll have a boiled frog just floating around, the whole frog floating around in this bowl of broth.
How much alcohol do you have to drink before you can eat the frog?
Well, I've never had it, but I've seen pictures. It's quite famous.
Oh, could you do it?
I'm really not sure. I've eaten. I've had frog legs before.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, it's as with anything, it's good, but you can't think about what you're.
Yeah, I know.
You're eating.
Horse, I ate horse. Horse once.
I think I'd be fine with horse.
Yeah, snake, I've eaten snake.
I've had snake soup.
Snake soup.
I'll tell you a funny story. That I was at the.
We talk about change.
The night I was at the night. Well, I was at the night market.
Yeah.
In up in Taipei.
Yeah.
City, and I was there. So when I first came to Taiwan, eating soup with. Well, we stopped to have snake soup. The girl I was dating at the time, and we had snake soup, and then they had the like shots of
snake blood.
It's blood and venom and stuff with alcohol.
Yeah, lots of alcohol.
So we got those as well and tried it, and we're making a video, and then we're eating it, and it tastes fine. The meat tastes good, everything's good, but then sitting next to us, the only other customers there at the shop was a mother and like 2 little kids, right? And the kids, they don't want to eat their snake soup. And of course, there's a big cage sitting there with a snake looking at us, and you know that he's probably gonna be next for you know,
Or maybe they're going to feed the kids to the snake. You don't
so
know.
so apparently the kid was saying to the mom, "Oh, Mom, I don't want to eat my snake soup. That's disgusting." And the mom, she says, "Well, Johnny, look, see, even the foreigner, even he's eating it. If he can eat it, you can eat it.
He can eat anything.
It's like if he can eat, if the foreigner can eat it, then you can eat it."
And did it work?
I think I didn't think that really helped. I
No.
think it didn't help.
But
the
we
cause.
all know foreigners are crazy, right? Yeah.
But I just thought that was the funniest thing. If he's brave enough to eat it, then you can eat it too.
God, the
Snake
poor
soup.
snake, gosh. That's why I don't eat pork. I stared at looking at pigs for 2 hours on the freeway once.
Mm.
Can't do it. No way. They're too smart. You know, you know, probably in the Old Testament we were vegetarians. You know, probably right up until the flood, and then after the flood we began to eat meat, but not before, right? But
Oh, really?
Noah's flood apparently. Yeah. So we were vegetarians. So maybe we're going back to be vegetarians, right? Wouldn't be so bad. I think we'd be slimmer, probably as healthy. You know.
Well, you know what? I think with being vegetarian, depending on where I lived, I wouldn't really have an issue. I think where a lot of countries in Asia, for example,
Yeah.
they have a lot of meat alternatives,
Yeah,
such
absolutely.
as in Thailand and Taiwan, and they have all the tofu.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I really, really enjoy tofu.
Yeah, the smelly stuff especially.
Oh, I
Spicy.
do, yeah.
The spicy. They call it terrible name. Stinky tofu.
Stinky, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I like that so
Yeah, I do
much.
too. Really good.
So I think so. I've had vegetarian meals without trying to be vegetarian, which I thought were
Really good.
really good, delicious, and I did not feel
Put out at all.
put out, or I did not think, well, I don't feel satisfied
Yeah.
because it's not meat.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think the problem back in the States or whatever, there's getting to be more options. But I think the problem is
Yeah, the meat-based societies.
it's just it's harder.
Yeah.
It would be harder to convert in a meat-based society.
Do
Yeah.
you ever see the movie my great big Greek wedding or something like this? My great big fat Greek wedding. or
No,
something?
I haven't
Okay.
seen it.
It's a funny movie, but the girl is Greek and she goes to marry this guy, and
Mhm.
he's a vegetarian, and so her mother prepares all this food, you know, meat based, right? She said, "Mom, John or whatever, he's a vegetarian." She said, "Oh, then he can eat lamb." Yeah, it's quite a good movie. Yeah, it's quite funny. Quite funny. Yeah. So change, eh? I think I remind myself, Gary, you know, because you're right. As you do get older, you do get more set in your ways. You know, you gotta, you know, you really do. But I remind myself that that change is necessary, and only I can change. If I'm willing to change, I can change. Right? I mean, moving away from your home country is a wonderful way to change. Right?
Mhm.
That helps you because you're forced into circumstances that you normally wouldn't be in.
Oh
Right?
yeah.
You know, and so I can recommend that for change. You know, but I've had some. I once went to Paris, and a friend of mine from Canada came and joined us, and he was, by the time he got off the airplane, he was angry. Right? You know what I'm saying? Because there've been so
Yeah.
many changes, and he didn't like the French food, and he didn't like
Yeah.
the rudeness in the restaurant, and he didn't like this, and it just went on and on.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is that the minute you leave your home country, and the first thing you realize is that you are not special, and nobody cares. Period. About you. You're not important. Whatever power you may have had in your own home country, you don't have it where you're going.
Mm.
You know, and you better get rid of that nonsense and be polite. You know, and then you probably won't have any problems. But if you're the ugly American, as we used to call it, right? You got problems. Ugly Canadian, ugly whomever. You know, the Chinese tourists. Read an article recently on the Chinese tourists. They have a lot of problems when they travel because they're now the ugly Chinese tourists, arrogant and screaming and lots of money and no thank you know. It's not going to be the same way for you, babe. You know, no, not on.
Well, I think, yeah, with the change, like you said, I do think that, as we know, change is inevitable, even from, as you said, aging, as an example.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
And that being said, you can't stop change.
Yeah.
So, you you just have to make peace with the fact that
Yeah.
that things are going to change, and you need to be able to adapt to the best of your ability, and leave it at that. I think like you said your friend, the one with the phone, is the classic example
Yeah.
where it would be a lot easier just to accept.
Sure.
I don't like using the phone,
But
but there's some occasions I might need it, so.
and then you get into it too, of course, right? I mean, maybe
Well, you
don't-
very well could, yeah.
maybe you don't like the phone initially, or maybe you don't like many things initially, right? But you get into it, and the way it goes. I think in a nutshell, I think you have to realize two things. I do, Gary. One is that when you wake up in the morning, I'm alive. That's a big deal. And secondly, be excited about your life. Be excited whether you're 16 or 65. Be excited. Why not? Because it's inside your head, right? Why not be
yeah.
excited? And accept what is, and the things you can't change, you can't change. I mean, there are people who have positions, and you try to explain something, say, not for me. I disagree. Done.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not changing, right? That's it. That's it. But that's not the way I see the world. And we spoke about this before.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are people like religion, for instance. There are people that say there's no God, there's God. Okay, it's up to you, babe. If it's making your life a happier, more fulfilling reality because of your position, bless you. If it's not, think about change. Right? So.
Yeah. Well, I think for my part, I'll just say this. I think if you're not happy about something in life,
Change it.
change it. Yeah. That if you're really not satisfied or not happy or wishing you could do more,
Yeah.
then change it.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
there's no reason you can't.
Absolutely. Question?
Answer.
How many times am I allowed to be married? Once? Change. Twice? Change. 3 times? Change. 4 times? Am I allowed? The first marriage, 50% fail. Second marriage, 60%. Third marriage, 70%. That's all you get. The fourth marriage, don't try it. It's true, apparently. These are the
Well, we've talked about that before as well, though.
Yeah.
Because the people by then, they're so set in
Set
their
in your
routines
ways.
and
Yeah, that's right.
ways that,
No change. Yeah.
yeah, that's the problem right there.
The answer is only get married once. That's the answer, for sure. Realize that you should think about it, plan it, analyze it, and then make the best choice that you can. But realize you're going to stay with this, barring horrible catastrophes, whatever they may or may not be. Right? Our parents did. My parents did. 52 years, right? And I think in the end it was the right move for them and for their family. Right?
Mhm.
Really, I really believe this. But my mother and father were two totally lovely people, but Mars and Venus, two are totally different. But it was a generation as well, right? So change.
Yeah.
So I
Don't, yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, just don't fear it, just embrace it.
Yeah.
Because some things, if it's out of your control, there's no point in worrying about it because it's out of your control. If it is in your control, well then find the best way to make it suitable for you.
Absolutely.
So let's change.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Embrace it. Yep.
Okay, well,
Okay. Time for a change.
Gary out.
The grandfather out. Bye bye.
Good night.
Good evening.